Hello, everyone, and welcome to the primary election forum of Peabody's Ward 5 City Councilor candidates. On behalf of the Peabody Area Chamber of Commerce, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here today. Thank you to today's moderator, Dave Olson, editor with the Salem News, and Peabody Area Chamber board member. Thank you also to today's forum sponsors, the City of Peabody, the Salem News, and Peabody TV, who is behind the scenes recording today's forum. Thank you. Without further ado, I will introduce our Ward 5 candidates. We have David Gamache, Matt Molk, and incumbent Joel Saslaw. And I will now hand it over to Dave Olson to review the format and get us started.
Thanks, Beth. The format is pretty simple. This is a forum and not necessarily a debate. We're going to ask the same question of all three candidates, and everybody will get 2 minutes to answer. But we're going to start with introductions. So Dave Gamache, you have 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you to PAT and the Chamber of Commerce for allowing us to have this forum. First and foremost, I've lived in the city of Peabody all my life, graduate Peabody Veterans Memorial High School class of 1978. I have served as a city councilor for 24 years, from 1990 to 2013. And the issues that basically are before us, whether or not we can get the city moving again, despite the setbacks of COVID. Currently, public services is way understaffed, and the police and fire are really understaffed based on the retirements that we've had, and there's been no academies in the last year. So my goal is to make sure that we get those departments staffed properly, eliminate the overtime, and increase our public services. The other issue that's before us is to increase the affordable housing. 40Bs are a detriment to the city. What I would look to do is try to develop affordable housing that currently exists within the city of Peabody. And it might be 1 or 2 units at a time, but those 1 or 2 units will go greatly towards our 10% goal. Utilize the existing elderly housing and try and create more elderly housing. Unfortunately, our seniors are getting older, and they're either selling their homes and living with their children, or just basically moving out of the city, and that's not good for the city. The other issue I want to try to look at is bringing back civility within the city council. If you watch the past couple of meetings, or even several of the meetings, it seems like there's a disconnect between the city councilors and their understanding, or not so much understanding, but dealing with each other. And I think that's a big thing we got to improve.
Thank you. We're at 2 minutes. And next up, Matt Molk. Matt.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you to all the sponsors. Thank you to Peabody TV, City of Peabody, and the Chamber of Commerce. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Matty Molk. I'm a lifelong Peabody resident. I'm the grandson of immigrants who worked in the leather factories. I'm a son of a teacher and a Peabody police officer. I went to Peabody High School, class of 2000. From there, I went on to graduate from Emerson College. I have 2 sons of my own now, Theo and Max. Theo's at the Burke School, Max in preschool. Along with my beautiful wife, Serena. We live at 13 Emily Lane. And we're very active in youth sports and nonprofit organizations. I work in Peabody. I work for Greylock, which is a family business. We do technology consulting. I'm the director of web and application. I manage a team of some of the best and brightest in the area. I'm a lot of things. I'm a son. I'm a father. I'm a brother. One thing I'm not a career politician. I have no political baggage. Hell, I'm the only one on here who doesn't receive a city paycheck. I am the clean slate. I am a fresh start. I'm a path forward, and I'm honored to be nominated to represent the future amongst the likes of these candidates representing the past and the present. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel Saslaw. Oh, you're on mute. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Beth, and to all the sponsors. My name is Joel Saslaw. I'm the current Ward 5 councilor. A little bit about my personal background. I am also a lifelong Peabody resident. I grew up initially on Martin Circle, went to the Kylie School, and then I transferred to Cross Keys Apartments. I was raised by a single mother, strong woman, and I went to the Farnsworth Elementary School, obviously the Higgins, and then I graduated from Peabody High School in 1981. And then I'm a graduate also of Babson College. I have my wife, Carol, and my two sons, Justin and Ryan. We live in 21 Benevento Circle in Peabody, Mass. And as I said earlier, I'm finishing up my 8th year on the council. I'm 58 years old, so I don't consider myself a career politician. I got into this at the age of 50. And the reason why I got involved was basically I like to help people. I like to help people with their struggles and their problems. And especially on a ward council race and a ward council position and role, that's what we do. We can actually help and affect people's lives a lot more than even people at the presidential election. And it's not glamorous. It's a lot about street signs and lights and paving and things that affect everybody on a daily basis. One of the things I'm proud of is that I feel I'm an independent voice on the council. I'm willing to ask the questions that I think the public wants to hear and wants to hear the answers of. And I've been involved in a lot of projects. Ward 5 obviously has Route 1 that runs through the ward. And also we have many other family neighborhoods such as Centerfield, Rolling Hills, Jordan Acres, and those areas. I'm looking forward to the campaign, and I'm looking forward to talking about the issues and the things that I've helped with the ward and the challenges I look forward to helping the city in the days and months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our first question, and we start with Matt Molk. In the past few years, a number of large housing projects have been proposed or permitted that would create close to 600 new apartments and/or condos in your ward. Is this a good or a bad thing? And how do you see this development fitting into the area you represent?
Sure. Thank you, Dave. For starters, my main concern is the kids. I'm very concerned about the kids. I have my own kids, our networks of friends and family and neighbors, all have kids. I think, we got to look at the school system. How is the schools going to be impacted? How are the school districts going to be reshaped? There can be a lot of, collateral damage when there's overdevelopment. I think it's our duty to make sure that the kids are not part of that. We really have to be focused about them. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel.
So regarding 40B, I think it's important to understand that really it's a mandate that comes down from the state. The Baker administration wants affordable housing, and unfortunately, we as a city have to provide 10% or above, or we're faced with the mandate of the 40B. Right now, Peabody as a city, we are slightly above the 40B, but we probably will be going under once again when the new census figures come out. I think I can say quite confidently that all these city councilors and the mayor would love to be above the 10% because the threat of 40B that looms over our head is not a good position to be in. What I'm proud of is the fact that Ward 5 has stepped up and helped the city with that. We had friendly 40Bs, one's going up on Sonic, one's going up on Farm Ave. A friendly 40B means that the developer has worked with both myself and the mayor's office to put housing in the areas that we feel it's going to be less affected. As far as the school goes, I'll just touch upon that. Once again, unfortunately, the state does not care about that. That's not a reason why you can deny it. So that's all the more reason why we need to get there and also district the schools properly so that the children are spread out properly across the elementary schools. We are, once again, going to be right beneath it. We have one development that we've been looking at on Route 1, and it's an area that's been blighted for many, many years. I inherited it. And the neighbors up there, we've had open and honest and transparent meetings. The developer has spoken to the neighbors individually on Cardigan and Winona, and it's something that we're looking at. It's in the hopper, so to speak, and I think that quality of life is important, and those people on Winona Street have gotten ravaged by flooding and problems up there. And unfortunately, it was proposed for a 14-lot housing development, but that ship sailed and that's not coming back. So we're trying to work with the developer, once again, open, transparent, and wants to talk to the neighbors. I will only support a development that has a developer who does do that.
Thank you. Dave Gamache.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, developers come in and they sell a project and it doesn't turn out to be those projects. So you have to deal with developers, but you also have to be firm and let them know what the neighbors want. And as far as the 128 Newbury site, it's just not conducive to allowing another 40B or another apartment building or a condominium building that's going to inundate the McCarthy School District. So Joel is correct in saying that there is a problem with the state mandating this, and I think both Matt, Joel, and I agree on that. The problem is we have an ability to allow for existing affordable housing throughout the city, whether it be 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units. We've got to get back to getting community development to go out and get these individual apartment buildings, whether it be 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 apartments, getting them to sign on to affordable housing and allowing that. If you get 6 units, that's a lot of units when you're looking at where we're at today. So, you got 230 units being proposed. Or I don't know if they've changed it at all since then, but we have to, if I tell you right now, if there was a 40B coming in that was senior housing, I don't think anybody would complain, because there's nothing that will create problems with services in schools. 40Bs for elderly are primarily what I would look for. I would try to get somebody in there to do a development for elderly housing and allow for those units to be counted. And again, the state does not allow the mobile home districts to be included in 40Bs. And I would again revisit the issue with our state senators and our state representatives to see if we can possibly get the mobile home parks included in our inclusionary zoning.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, and we start with Joel. Should the city be trying to encourage other types of new development along Route 1?
Well, I always think that a mixture of commercial and residential is good for everybody. Obviously, it helps the businesses. One of the things that we lack a little bit in PV, though, is public transportation. So unfortunately, when you do put housing, there is going to be cars. But Route 1 is an interesting body of land. I think that we have done a decent job. We had the Big Pig Barbecue go in there. We had the Auto Factory, which was not like any dealership that we had on Route 1 in the past. So we always want to promote development. Obviously, businesses are going to help offset the property taxes of the residents. So I would encourage that. I believe in quality of life, but I also believe in working with businesses. When you represent Route 1, you want to try and have good businesses that want to participate in the community, businesses that want to give back to the community, that just don't open 8 to 5 and shut their doors. And I think we've done a good job of that. Are there some current businesses on Route 1 that probably aren't the best? Yes, but quite frankly, when you're dealing with private property owners, there's only so much you can do. But I've always taken phone calls. I'm always open to that, and I'll continue to be open to that. And once again, working with community development or the mayor's office to bring good business to Peabody. And as I think, I'm always going to be open to that and willing to listen.
Thank you. Dave Gamache.
Yes, thank you. Well, as a ward councilor for 24 years, I basically made a mark on almost every property on the highway. We closed the mobile home park on Newbury Street and put in not just 1, 2, but we put in 3 hotels that at the time have increased our revenue via the taxes that it has increased, as well as we shut down the Carriage House Motel and had a development going there. And I just, I think that with Route 1, you can't really have mixed uses right on Route 1 because mixed uses need walking traffic, and it's not conducive to walking traffic. So, mixed use is a good downtown where you got a lot of foot traffic and you don't have to worry about commuting back and forth. Route 1 has always been an area that has been neglected. I think we've improved that since the late 80s. We still have a couple of businesses up there that are not really family friendly. Let's put it that way. But there is hope. There's hope that we can continue to reduce that and improve on our current situation. The state has gone in and they're redoing the roadway. One thing I would love to see is the state really take a good hard look at Route 1 as far as the traffic's concerned, where you go from 95 and Route 1, 4 lanes to 2 lanes. And then after the bridge in Linfield Street, it goes to 4 lanes again. So these are the issues that I think we have to really look at. Traffic is always going to be an issue, but I don't want to get off the subject of the question. Mixed use is good, but it's not that good for up in that area.
Okay. Thank you. Matt Molk.
Yes, I absolutely think that the city should be encouraging business development on Route 1. These businesses are, they're responsible for keeping our tax rates low. The city should be doing everything within its grasp to encourage businesses to flourish there, especially in this post-pandemic, post-COVID landscape. I think the city has to do all we can, and it may not be, what are we adding, but what are we subtracting? What restrictions can we lift? Can we suspend to get out of the way for businesses to really grab hold and get creative and start getting back to work, especially on Route 1.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, we start with Dave Gamache. Peabody has a well-deserved reputation as having one of the lowest tax rates in Massachusetts. The average homeowner saw a mere $76 increase in their tax bill this year. Part of that came after the city moved $1.5 million out of its rainy day emergency fund. Is that something you would support again this year if the economy doesn't improve? And what role does the city council have in helping to keep the tax rate low?
That's my question, right, Dave?
Yes, sir.
Yes. First and foremost, I believe that the tax rate should be maintained at a consistent level. Unfortunately, we have had increases in employment, not just on the city side, but as well as the school side. And I'm not in favor of creating positions with COVID money. I think that positions that have been created with this year's influx of COVID money, especially in the school system, will run out. It's a one-shot deal. And next year we either have to look at those positions and say we can afford them or we can't. And as far as the rainy day funding, it's there for a rainy day. Whether we should hit that fund every year to offset taxes, to me, isn't a prudent thing to do. It's just not a good business decision. Our bond rating relies upon certain criteria, and that's one of them, to keep our bond rating very high. So as far as getting into that every year, I'm not in favor of that. I don't think it's a good economic issue to look at. So again, anything that has to do with one-time funding that creates positions, I am totally against, because the bill is always going to have to be paid the following year, and that funding is not going to be available. So going into the funding for $1.5 million to offset a tax increase occasionally may be good, but unfortunately, it's not a good economic business decision.
Thank you. Matt Molk.
Yeah, to keep taxes low, it's 3 things. It's the strong monitoring of spending. It's requiring as low as, required positions within the city as possible, and develop downtown and other business areas, keep the taxes low. As far as the rainy day fund, like Dave Gamache said, it's there for a rainy day. It's there for emergencies like one we just experienced. But my perspective of it is, maybe is the rainy day fund there because it's a result of underspending, or is it a result of over budgeting? And I think we've got to take a good hard look at the books to make sure that we are budgeting correctly. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel.
So I'm in agreement that I'm not in favor of funding positions with COVID and also with grants, because this was previously stated, once you fund a position with a grant that expires or COVID funds, eventually the city's going to hold the bag and have to pick up that expense. That being said, when it comes to taxes, one of the things is we always get that press, we had the lowest taxes. And that might be great, but just because we have the lowest taxes doesn't mean we can't do better. You know, you used a figure of, I think, $73 was the average tax bill. Well, quite frankly, it's a nice number, but there are not that many people who had just $73. One of my concerns is that we have elderly people who've grown their families. They've stayed in this city for many, many years. And I don't want them to be afraid, and they are afraid of being taxed out of the city by their tax bill going up every single year. It's great if the home values are high. It's great if you want to refinance, but if you're not reselling and you want to stay in your home to raise the taxes every year, I'm proud of the fact that I have not always agreed with every tax increase. I voted against it. I'm also not a big believer in automatic pay raises for non-unionized personnel, for people who don't bargain. You know, sometimes in front of our face, we get the question of, we want to raise someone making $90,000 a year, 2 or 3% for the next 2 or 3 years automatically. In the real world, you go and you get a review every year. You see what your performance was. And I think we've gotten a little bit into that because we give the unions raises, we got to give everybody else raises. And I don't believe that. So I think as far as going with taxes, yes, we want to keep them low. I'd like to see us maybe go level spending, but you know, sometimes you are going to pull out of the rainy day fund when necessary, but I still think we have to keep a very strong eye on the spending. And that's what, in my opinion, does make taxes go up. If you can rein in some of the spending, then you're going to not have so much of an increase.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. Okay, we start with Matt Molk with our next question. Climate change is an emerging issue for local governments, with more state and federal money being put in the hand of municipalities to address their unique problems. Peabody and Salem, for example, just received a state grant of $150,000 to address flooding in the North River corridor. What specific challenges does Peabody face in the next decade, and how can the city council help address them?
Sure, thanks, Dave. You know, going green is a big interest of mine. I'm a big proponent of renewable energy. You know, one thing that, you know, I would like to see done that I think could, you know, kind of, you know, ward off some of the future overdevelopment of Ward 5 too is, you know, the, sorry, phone is ringing. The introduction of solar fields, solar panels, renewable energy to undeveloped land in Ward 5 that could ward off, you know, any potential overdevelopment. I think the city for too long has taken a reactive approach. And I think it's time to get proactive, be thinking 10 years down the line. And, you know, I don't think that, you know, using these, you know, fossil fuel plants are the way to go in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel.
So I think everybody is in favor of renewable energy and green energy. It's just a question of how we're going to get there. Whether it be the automobiles, whether how we heat our homes, the energy that we produce. As a city, I would probably say that solar panels, the proposals have come up once or twice. They've been pulled back. I am a proponent of that. I think the biggest thing when it comes to solar panels is where you put them. Do you put them on buildings? Do you put them on land that's not being used? Because people are concerned about that. It's that not in my backyard effect. As I said, we were going to put one up at Buxton Cliff. Some neighbors came out, and then it was pulled back from the mayor's office. As far as the peaker plant, I think that situation was not handled correctly. I don't think it was transparent. Obviously, it's going to be on city land. Everyone in the city council did not know about it. So how that happened, I can't tell you, but I'm happy to see that the group of environmentalists who are bringing it to the forefront, and I know the funding was approved by the state, but I know that the people who believe firmly in that cause are not going to go away. I do think that you have to have a balance, and I think I'll leave it to the experts what the balance is, but I do think that fossil fuels are going to go away. It probably is not going to be 5 years or 10 years, but even with the automobiles, 10, 15, 20 years, but we have to plan now. If we don't plan our work and work our plan now, then we're still going to be reliant on the fossil fuels and the things that we really need to get rid of to clean the environment.
Thank you. Dave Gamache.
Yeah, Dave, can you repeat the question? Because
Sure.
I think that the question was about Salem and Peabody. And
It's a long one. Hold on a sec. Okay, climate change is an emerging issue for local governments, with more state and federal money being put in the hands of municipalities to address their own unique problems. Peabody and Salem, for example, just received a state grant of $150,000 to address flooding in the North River corridor. What specific challenges related to climate change does Peabody face in the next decade, and how can the City Council help address them?
Well, first and foremost, Salem and Peabody have to get together and figure out how to create a situation where the incoming tides don't inundate Peabody Square. That's the first, that's been an ongoing issue for 40 years. It's going to be a continuing issue until we can either get Salem to put up some type of system at the entry point of the river to not allow the water to come in and allow the flood waters of Peabody Square to go out. A full high tide does not allow the city to drain, and therefore it's going to be a problem until we actually correct and put something in, get the Army Corps of Engineers to get in there, figure out what has to be done, whether it be a type of tidal lock system or a system that will create a different funnel to allow the water to leave Peabody Square is a major issue. We've done very well with the flooding in the city for the last 5, 6, or 7 years. We've cleaned our tributaries. We've made sure the water moves. That's a big issue. As far as some types of green environmental investments, I'm a big proponent of solar energy. I think that if you go down 128, you see Beverly has a big solar farm on their old, I believe it's their old landfill. And I think Peabody can do quite a bit with their old landfill now that Cavanta has moved out. We still have to have the ability to bring in certain materials. That's the city's, responsibility and bring up there. But I do believe that if we were able to put solar panels on a certain area of that landfill, it wouldn't affect the ability to bring in product and therefore allow for some type of better green investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, our next question, we start with Joel. Massachusetts is ahead of many states in its economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, but there's still a long way to go. Many Peabody businesses, especially small businesses, tell us they are still struggling to catch up from the last year and a half of lost income, and that they're finding it difficult to lure back customers and to find workers to fill open shifts. What can the City Council do to help these businesses?
I think what the City Council can do is basically continue to promote the businesses that we have in the city. And that can be anywhere from downtown. Don't forget about the shopping center. They're a big taxpayer, and they also have gone under some duress, the restaurants and the businesses up there. Besides giving out money, quite frankly, I don't know what, businesses are looking for. But you have to use, in the old days, people would advertise a lot in the newspaper. I think nowadays with social media, I think working with the Chamber of Commerce, I'm sure they have some ideas. They bring experts and other run workshops all the time. How can you increase traffic without increasing expenses? So I think that businesses have to think a little bit about outside the box. As far as the employment issue, I think that's going to resolve itself a little bit as we head into the holiday season, quite frankly, because the extra payments from the government have been have stopped. And I think that hurt small businesses. I'm sure we all heard stories of even kids in college. They came home when they were going to work, and all of a sudden they were getting a check that was larger than their employer could provide. It wasn't a good situation. It's the reality. It happened, unfortunately, but it did affect businesses tremendously. And employment is still going to be an issue as we head into the next few months. But I do feel it's getting a little bit better. But I just think as a city, if we can continue to work with businesses, try and take some relief off. If they come to us and they have some suggestions, they're looking for some special permit conditions to be relieved, that we can listen to them and help them if it's not going to create major problems. I think we need to be an advocate, supporters, and cheerleaders of the businesses. And as I said, if they can communicate with us, I know we have a council that's willing to listen, and we'll do anything in our powers to help it out.
Thank you. Dave Gamache.
Yes, I think that we have to try to give the business communities a boost, whether it be by a small tax decrease for next year, or come up with some type of solution that will allow them to bring more traffic into the areas that we need to have these businesses thrive. Unfortunately, with the unemployment, businesses haven't survived, and it's not just the North Shore, it's throughout the United States and the world, and we have to get these people back to work. So nobody is going to all of a sudden snap their fingers and have this thing cured. It doesn't work like that. We have kids that are in school, and they're putting their efforts into school instead of going out to work like a lot of us did when we were younger. But it's the community, the business community through the chamber has to come up with some types of programs that will increase the benefits of these businesses to bring the traffic back in. Downtown, I'm a big advocate of mixed use. I've said all along that those are the types of businesses that will be able to support themselves with the increase of the neighborhood traffic. And it's the city's responsibility to make sure that these businesses try and stay vibrant and try to stay above board, make some money, and stay in business. Nobody wants storefronts closed and shuttered. Nobody wants businesses in the industrial parks closed and shuttered. But it's a reality in today's COVID environment. So I think that the community development and the business liaison should move forward in trying to help out these small businesses and be creative. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you. Yeah. The best thing I think that the city council can do to promote businesses and assist in this post-COVID landscape is get the hell out of the way. I think they got to remove obstacles. They got to remove restrictions that let these businesses get their feet back underneath them, whether that's by means of special permit or just getting creative in general. I don't believe in, forever handouts or, anything financial in that sense, but, removing any obstacles that are going to get them back is first and foremost a priority. Second, you got to give credit to these young entrepreneurs that are taking risks in Peabody. They have to be rewarded for their efforts. I don't think the city should let them down. And I also don't think the city should make any assumptions as to what the businesses need. I think we need people out there talking to the businesses. I don't know if the business liaison role has been filled or occupied yet, but if it hasn't, now is the time. We need that role more than ever to go out there to be talking to the businesses, to hear what they need. These are creative businesses. Let's not dismiss them. We got some of the most creative people in the area. I've seen it firsthand. Let's hear it from them directly. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, we start with Dave. While we're on the subject of COVID-19, I think we can all agree it's been a long 18 months. And I'm wondering, how would you rate the city of Peabody's response to the crisis? What worked over the past 18 months and what would you have done differently?
Well, thank you. As the facilities coordinator for the city, we were readily prepared with all of our PPE. We knew what was coming. The administration did a great job in getting all the PPE supplies to public services to be disseminated throughout the schools, public buildings, and all that. We were on it, and Sharon took control, made sure the buildings were safe. We made sure they were clean and disinfected. And as COVID changed, so did the way the practices within the city's buildings and administration started to change as well. And we were on it. We hired companies to come in and clean the city-owned buildings. We had disinfectant guns, machines for every school building, and they were done. We had all of the PPE supplies. We're still getting requests for the supplies. The only issue I really have with what we didn't do right is not bringing the workforce back to 100%. I think that shuttering City Hall for as long as it was shuttered was not good for the city, was not good for the people and the citizens of the city that wanted to have some type of ability to come in and do their daily work. That is the only issue that I found it to be at fault with the whole COVID epidemic situation, that the city's buildings, especially City Hall, wasn't open to the public. And then when it was opened, it was more of a knee-jerk type situation to bring the people back in to have work done at City Hall. But everybody should have come back to work once it was eliminated, and we should have opened up a little bit sooner. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Molk.
Yeah, for me, I don't have any real issues. I was satisfied with the city's response. Obviously, it was new, uncharted territory. There was no precedent set. As a citizen, I felt like I was being communicated to daily the latest happenings, the latest data. Yeah, I was completely satisfied. If I had to change two things about it, I echo Mr. Gamache's sentiment that City Hall should have been more available, more open. It should open its doors sooner, and more testing sites. I don't think there was any testing sites that was popping up in Peabody early on. It wasn't until later stages. As a citizen, I would have appreciated that. But overall, I give the city a good rating on its response. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel.
Thank you, David. I think hindsight being 2020, you always can maybe figure things out a little bit differently. That being said, as a society not living through a pandemic, I think in anyone's lifetime, we did pretty good. I do agree as far though, City Hall, I was a little bit disappointed in how shut down it was. It was not accessible. I think we could open up a little bit early. And I also think it was a little bit inconsistent on some of the departments in City Hall and who was open, who was going in, who was not going in. Created a little bit of, I think, a morale issue down there, quite frankly. And I also proposed a couple of times publicly, I thought it was an opportunity. Obviously, if not much work was, as much work was being done, it might have been an opportunity to offer some sabbaticals. And I still think I believe in sabbaticals as far as sometimes there are families that one of the adults or parents would like to take a leave, non-paid leave, and if the work can be done, as we know, more work is being done in corporate America by less people every day, and in the public sector, I'm sure they manage their resources better now, and they can get more work done. And we need to look at how can we cut down expenses to help with the bottom line. But as a whole, as I said, I think they did very well. The school committee did well with keeping the buildings open. They were had a lot of meetings, and I hope that as we go forward, we don't go backwards, and that people will continue to move forward, get vaccinated, and we can get these buildings open up 100% once we get past all these variants.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, we start with Matt Molk. And one of the major challenges of the COVID era has been ensuring citizens all had access to their government and to their elected officials. And one of the debates in Peabody centered on the effectiveness and fairness of Zoom meetings for city bodies like the city council. Do you think Zoom worked for the city council? Is there a role for remote participation going forward?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a role for remote participation as much as, the pandemic and COVID was such a, a horrible experience. I think what it shed a light on was a little glimpse of us in the future. I think it fast forwarded us years ahead. The technology is going to be playing a bigger role. I'm in technology every day. I'm seeing the progress that is being made. I think that now that we got a taste for it, we have that under our belt, I do see a role for it. I also, on the flip side, see the value of interpersonal exchanges, human to human contact. I think we all place more of a emphasis in value on that, having been cooped up, locked away for the better part of a year. So I think both have their roles going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel.
So when it comes to Zoom meetings, there's the good and the bad. The good part is that the public can participate for people who can't get out of their house, for people who want to participate and can't come down to City Hall. The bad part of it, though, is that technology. Some people still don't have access to the internet, believe it or not. They don't have, even if they have access to the internet, be able to use the technology to participate in the meetings. There are things that happen as far as, breakdowns in hearing people and the sound, the quality, things of like that. So there's still some challenges out there, but I think it does allow for the public to become more involved. That being said, I'm a firm believer of being in the room with other people, because as you all know, the camera can only see, one segment, but there's a lot going on. There's a feel. I've been in sales my whole life, and there's a lot to be said about being in a room with a bunch of people and getting a feel of what's going on, and whether it's a special permit hearing, and there are people who show up, and when there's 20 or 30 people who show up in a room and they want to come up and they want to speak at the microphone. I'm a big believer in the press being in the room and not watching meetings from home or watching them on tape delay. There's so much that is missed when you're not in the room, and I think we need to get back to that. I think we are doing a pretty good job about that. I know other cities have talked about Zoom meetings. As I said, it certainly has a place and a role, and we've learned a lot, and it can fast forward. But I still think the in-person meetings, face-to-face, where the public can look at their elected officials, can look at their appointed boards, make their arguments on whatever cause they're there for, is so important.
Thank you. Dave Gamache.
Yes, thank you, Dave. As far as Zoom is concerned, it was something that allowed the city to continue a process of government. I think the public hearings were necessary to allow for things to move forward that were on agendas, and things that tried to increase the ability of the economy to move forward via special permit applications and the such. I'm a firm believer in one-on-one. I think that, as Councilor Saslaw said earlier, we need to have direct relationships with our constituents. Now, we're not always going to agree, but if someone's there and they want to make their voice heard, then so be it. They should be entitled to do that. Zoom necessarily didn't give that impression if you didn't have the communication ability to be on Zoom. So it worked to the degree that it allowed government to continue, but it was more or less detrimental to those who couldn't access the Zoom meetings, and therefore might not have been able to express their concerns the way that you could have done in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our last question, and we start with Joel. Other than participating in meetings, can you outline what your approach to constituent services will be?
Absolutely. So I'm proud of my constituent services, and let me give you some examples. I run everything open and transparent, and I'll give you specific examples. A lot of times when there are projects that want to be done in the neighborhood, that neighborhood is affected, and they reach out and they ask for a voice at the table. And I've done things. We had a bank that wanted to open up a branch across from the West Peabody Fire Station, and one of their things was they wanted an ATM machine, and the neighbor said, absolutely not. We don't want the lights going into our bedroom. I stood with the neighbors. I had a meeting at the bank headquarters, and I did not support it. We had another situation where the Big Pig Barbecue on Route 1, they wanted to open up. The neighbors in Huntington Woods, they were worried about smelling barbecue 24/7. What did we do? We did a taste test. We did burning for 24 hours. We had a meeting. They came up. They saw it. Another situation when it came to billboards, I inherited that situation. I would fly balloons so certain neighborhoods could see how they'd be affected. And when it comes to 40B developments, I've had numerous meetings with neighbors, big meetings on Route 1. So as far as constituent services on that scale, I'm proud of the work I've done. And then as far as one-on-one, it's a different job than it was 10, 15 years ago. People contact you via email, Facebook Messenger, text, phone calls. It's not getting home at 5 o'clock, press the answer machine and see you called. It's a 24/7 job that you have to be available. And I'm proud of what I've done. And I'm proud of what I do on social media. I'm proud of that I'm one of the elected officials in Peabody who has a presence. I don't just pop up at election season. I don't just pop up when it's convenient for me. I pop up during the course of the year, and I put out the information, I get it. And obviously I have to be respectful of the process because I have to give everyone a fair and reasonable hearing. But as far as staying in touch with my constituents, let them know what's going on. I'm there, I am responsive, and I think that's what people are looking for in a counselor. And I'll continue to do that, and I'll continue to speak up and be an advocate for the residents of Ward 5.
Thank you. Dave Gamache.
Yes, well, I have had the ability to work with the constituents in West Peabody from 1990 to 2013. I was always available 24/7. I did come into some of the technology that Joel had mentioned, and I was always available for those people. I have made tough decisions where we've had to shut down a mobile home park, as I alluded to earlier, because it wasn't up to health codes. I had to make a decision about changing the retirees, the way they got their retirement funding. We went to Medicare A and B, and it was a very, very lively conversation that we had. And any type of change with retirement is brutal, but this made our city one of the best municipals retirement situations that we have. I also made a vote to close the J.B. Thomas Hospital when we had hundreds and hundreds of people at City Hall yelling and screaming not to shut it, but we were spending $1 million a year out of our own budget to keep it going. So I'm not afraid to make a decision. I've made tough decisions. I'm not the guy that, you can come up and ask me a question. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth. And if that's not what you want to hear, then so be it. I don't have to worry about saying I can do something if I can't do it, because I'm not going to say that. It's either I can do it or I can't do it, and it's done. I'm retiring in another couple of weeks. I look forward to being a 24/7, 365 counselor. I did that when I was working, but I've got the time, the ability to put every effort that I have into a city that I've loved, that I've loved the position. And the day I walked out that door, I regretted saying that I wasn't coming back. So I look forward to the election on Tuesday. I wish Joel and Matt the best of luck. And I just want to make sure everybody goes out and votes. Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you. Yep. Matt.
Thanks, Dave. As far as serving the constituents, the proud constituents of Ward 5 Peabody, I would leverage my skill set that I use every day in work. As a director position, I have to consolidate multiple streams of communication into a singular channel, break that channel into individualized tasks, assign priorities to these tasks, and make sure these tasks are completed. I think the same bodes well for the city council. I believe in 100% transparency. I am an open book. You can ask me anything, and I would have no hesitation with publishing any communications with any constituents. I believe in an open and fair government. And yes, go out and vote Tuesday, September 14th. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes our forum. And I want to thank you all for taking time out of your day for this. I want to thank the Peabody Area Chamber of Commerce and Beth Amico. I want to thank Peabody TV for doing this. And yeah, I'll say it too. Please remember to vote in the September 14th preliminary. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.